The college entrance exam was finally over. I was so confident that I answered every bonus question just to prove I was the best, ensuring the scholarship wouldn't go to anyone else, especially not to the girl they call the most beautiful in school. But as I left the hall, the mockery began. Jack and his gang approached me with a sneer. "Didn't go well, did it?" Jack laughed. "I'd better hand in an empty paper, or I'll make you crawl at our feet." Everyone laughed, but I just gave a cold nod, thinking, let the spoiled dog bark, I'm done playing this game. I pulled out my phone and called my family's loyal servant with a firm command. Cut off every penny of our support for their family. Evict them from the house immediately. Within moments, I started calling me like crazy. 99 missed calls, burning with rage and desperation. I didn't answer. I sat there, thinking coldly, are you finally starting to worry? This is only the beginning. In my past life, I was the wealthiest man in the land. Yet I spent my time crawling at the feet of a driver's daughter just to win her heart. I even gave her the entire company my father left for me. She wasted my fortune left and right while loving and pampering another man, treating me like a common servant. On her wedding day, I called her begging for a small amount of money to save Allah's life, but she answered with nothing but icy indifference. She said those years you stuck to me were a nightmare. Jack, go back to being a nobody and die. I was dying when I finally saw the woman I should have loved. The sophisticated girl I rejected long ago, who had been waiting for me all this time. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in my senior year of high school, in the same classroom, sleeping at my desk. My friend woke me up saying, "Ryan has a stomach ache. Go buy him some antacid, then get him food from the cafeteria and make sure it has plenty of meat, because he is thin and needs to eat well." Ryan was sitting at his desk, surrounded by a gang treating him like a king while everyone worried about his stomach. Naturally, I was there, acting like his loyal pet, while I used to be her obedient dog sleeping in class and spending my break running to get her drinks and fulfilling her every whim. But now, after being reborn, I looked at her face and wanted to laugh. Who does she think she is to make me do that? When she saw me standing still, she said angrily, "Why are you just staring? Move quickly and go to Ryan." Then she went to him and patted his back. Ryan looked at me kindly and said, "It's fine. Don't worry, Jack is my follower. He loves doing these things for me, and if he didn't, he would be upset, right?" Jack, I just looked at her and smiled slightly. I walked toward the cafeteria without saying a word. This time, I stood in line and bought 2 full meals. One of the students saw me and laughed, saying, "Are you getting food for the queen again? She likes Ryan." "Not someone like you?" I asked him calmly. "What did you say?" They laughed and said, "You're just the son of a servant coming to school in her car. Every day thinking you can marry her, you're just a useless fool and you will stay a servant in their house, washing their clothes and cleaning their floors." I laughed bitterly and said, "Who told you I am a servant's son? I just let her ride in my private car every day, but in the eyes of others, she was the rich girl and I was the servant's son." Ryan repeated the question when he saw me return, but I finished both meals right in front of them. They were stunned. Ryan and I looked at me in shock as I sat alone by the flowers eating the best meals I had in years. It was a dream once to eat well, without worrying about money. I finished both plates quickly, but the hunger was still there. When I returned to class, the first bell had rung. I looked at me and said angrily, You're back now. Where is the medicine? I looked at her coldly and said, I don't have any medicine. She was shocked. I used to show her every ounce of warmth, but now there was nothing. She yelled, Ryan's stomach hurts. Can't you do one simple thing? I looked at Ryan, and he did look tired. But why should I care about his family? They were poor. But I gave them everything my father gave me. Even the expensive watch on Ryan's wrist right now was paid for with my money. They were living off my wealth and treating me like a servant. I said, Jack, do you want to start a problem? Just finish the task and don't blame anyone but yourself. When I ignore you, and you come begging for forgiveness. I looked at her in surprise and said, Why would I need your forgiveness? Everyone in class stared at us, shocked that the boy who used to beg for her attention was now standing his ground. I was stunned because she was used to me chasing her every time, so she said with a warning, Fine, don't ride in my car today after school. I nodded and said fine, as I sat in my chair not caring at all about her words. Bree, who was sitting next to Ryan, immediately stepped in and said, Jack, what is wrong with you? Ryan is sick, and you can't even get him medicine. I looked at her coldly and said, Go get it yourself if you're so worried. She snapped back, That's your job. I said, I don't have a job here, so why should I go? She called me a servant and my blood boiled. I looked at her and said, I told people you were a servant to be kind, but it seems I should have told them the truth that you are just a driver's daughter who pretends to be rich every day because you ride in a luxury car, but you never told them your father is just a driver. I stood up and tried to make a scene, but I had already finished my meals and sat down, leaving them in total silence and disbelief. I thought she could punish me by making me sit alone, but little did she know I preferred it this way. I used to beg to sit near her, but now I didn't care. She used to be my private tutor, but looking back, she never actually helped me study. She only gave me orders, thinking she could annoy me, but I ignored her completely. Ryan was still complaining about his stomach and looking pale while I glared at me from across the room. She was truly angry now, thinking about how she would make me regret this after school near the luxury car. I walked straight past the gate without looking at her. The whole school was watching, waiting for me to crumble and beg for a ride as I usually did. The whispers started spreading. Is this really the boy who refused to bring her food and is now walking home instead of riding in her expensive car? Uncle Steve, the driver, looked at me confused and said, Young master, the lady is still inside school activities, sometimes run late. I used to wait for her every single day, but not today. I told him, Uncle Steve, let's go, start the car, and leave. He hesitated because he was weak in front of his daughter, but I told him, I'm the one paying, and I don't want to see her today. Uncle Steve still didn't move, so I laughed and said, Uncle Steve, I am the only son my father has. I is just a guest in our house. If you don't follow my orders, you can find another job. Uncle Steve finally realized the situation and started the engine. He used to gamble with my father's money, and I used to defend him, but those days are over. I suddenly rushed to the car with Ryan leaning on her arm supporting him. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. I looked at her through the window and said, You're going to have to find another way home. I was frozen in shock. She was used to me chasing her, but now I was leaving her on the curb. Ryan looked worried and asked Jack what's wrong, but I stopped him and said, Don't worry, Jack is just having a tantrum. He'll come crawling back soon. I smiled and waved goodbye. As the car pulled away, leaving them standing there. I yelled after me, but I didn't care. I pulled out my phone, the one I bought for her, because mine was old and cheap. But then I remembered in my past life, I gave her the brand new phone my father got me for my birthday and took her old one back just to make her happy. I was protecting her dignity while she was destroying mine. I called my father, right then and there. Uncle Steve looked nervous in the mirror, but I told him, from now on, everyone will know their true place. Everyone can take the bus home today because the luxury car belongs to me and me alone. I can join them since she thinks a servant's daughter can rule my life. Uncle Steve turned the car and truly left Ryan and I standing there in shock, looking at us as we drove away. They'll have to get used to the bus because my kindness ended today. Uncle Steve looked at me. Do you forget who signs your paycheck? If you have a problem, the door is open. Go ahead and leave if you want. Did you really think a servant's daughter could take my family's money and treat me like her personal worker? If I hadn't spoken to my father, he would still be standing here. But I am done with this nonsense. Uncle Steve immediately went silent and drove me home when we arrived. Auntie Jane met me at the door, looking surprised, and asked, "Where is the young lady I told her?" "There is no lady in this house anymore." She was stunned because she saw how well I used to treat I and her father, but I finally woke up. Auntie Jane wanted to say more, but she kept quiet and took my bags. I went to my room, then I remembered Sofia was here. By the way, Sofia used to come to our house a lot because her father was my father's business partner. But I used to hate her presence, and every time she came, I would refuse to see her or make her leave. Almost immediately, we never really talked before. I died, but people told me she was the one who actually got me to the hospital. She never forgot. I was her fiancé. Sofia was in the garden playing with Snowball, the dog I used to stay away, because I said she hated dogs, but Sofia was playing with him so gently, she looked beautiful in her blue school uniform. I realized then that she was a perfect girl in every way, but she had lived alone for years. My eyes turned red thinking about it. She finished playing and saw me standing there. She thought I wanted her to leave and said, "I just came to check on you. I'll go now," but I surprised her and said, "Would you like to have dinner with us?" Sophia froze and looked at me in shock. The sun was setting and the light hit her face. She said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Of course I am." Auntie Jane was shocked too because I usually delayed dinner until Ryan arrived, but today I told them we won't wait for anyone. The servants were confused, seeing me change my habits so quickly. Auntie Jane went to prepare the table, and I told her to tell Uncle Steve not to come to work tomorrow or any other day. She didn't ask why, she just followed my orders. I finally felt in control. Sophia sat at the table, looking at me. Shyly, she didn't expect me to be this kind. I joked with her, asking if I looked that bad, and she blushed and said, "No, you look great. I heard your grades were excellent." I told her I need a good tutor to help me study, because I'm done relying on people who don't respect me. Sophia has many connections, and I knew any teacher she recommended would be the best. She was surprised because she knew my previous teacher lived in our house, but I told her that name is gone. She never respected me or had patience to explain anything. Sophia took a sip from her cup and said, "I don't have a teacher, but if you want, I can come every day after school and explain the lessons to you." I didn't expect her to agree so quickly because I had ignored her for so long, but she saw my happiness and smiled. She said, I've already finished the high school curriculum, so it's no problem at all. I thanked her, and we were eating peacefully when suddenly I burst into the room. She had just arrived after dropping Ryan off. And when she saw me eating with someone else, her face turned pale. She saw Sofia sitting in her place, and her eyes filled with rage. But she was also sad because of her father. I looked at my guest and told if you have a problem, keep it to yourself. Sofia is my guest here. I sat down, slowly glaring at Sofia because they had been rivals for years and Sofia was always number one. I looked at and said, "Don't make this a big deal. You're overreacting as usual." I was sure she wouldn't understand the situation, but Sophia didn't say anything. She just went completely silent, and the warmth that was in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a cold distance. After dinner, I walked her to the door and told her to take care of herself. On the way home, she said, "Okay," without looking at me, and left in her usual quiet way. When I returned inside, I found coming down the stairs. She had taken off her school jacket and was wearing a simple shirt. She looked soft and innocent, but I knew that look was exactly what tricked me in the past. She looked at me and asked why I fired her father. She didn't mention it in front of Sophia because she couldn't let anyone know she was just a driver's daughter. I told her I didn't need to explain my decisions regarding my father's driver. She said, "If you want to punish someone, punish me, but don't take it out on him." Then she said, "Go ahead and fire me too." She gave me a strange energy, like she was challenging me to do it. I looked her in the eyes and said, "What did you just say?" She looked at me and said, "You've been a fool your whole life, thinking you can control me, but the game is over. Pack your things and leave from now on. I will find a real tutor who actually cares about my education." She couldn't believe I was actually doing it. She thought I was joking because she always thought I was beneath her and that I didn't understand how grades worked, but I was dead serious this time. I explained the situation to Ryan once, and he understood it immediately. "But it's impossible for you to understand. This was never my mistake. And even if you changed 100 tutors, no one will be able to teach you. The problem is in you, and you're still trying to blame me." I told her, "Get out of my house right now." She clenched her jaw and said, "You're just a student. Stay focused on your studies. Your mind is running in circles, and your grades are going to be a disaster." I laughed at her and said, "What are you even saying? I'm done with your games. I'm jealous because you and Ryan are close. I don't want to be in a relationship with you. I just want to focus on my studies and get into a good university. Not like you. Even if you don't study for a single day, your family's money will solve everything." Something like that. "Don't expect anything from me anymore." I stood there shocked for a moment looking at me. Then she realized I was serious. Who did she think we were going to be together forever? Where did you get that confidence from? Did you really think I wanted to stay with you forever without anything in return? I remembered how much I suffered, but she just said, "Think whatever you want. But I warn you, if you bring Sophia to dinner again, don't expect me to acknowledge your existence." She turned around and walked straight to her room, closing the door with a loud bang. She was acting so strange and aggressive, and the house felt different. I went to my room and called Auntie Jane, telling her to clear out everything in I's room tomorrow morning because there is no place for her in this house anymore. I don't want anyone stepping on me. I got Sophia's number from Auntie Jane and sent her a message saying, "Arrive safely." She didn't reply. The next day, I woke up early and relaxed for the first time. I didn't have to go pick up Ryan anymore. I slept until I felt like it, but I found I sitting at the breakfast table waiting for me. It had been months since we had a quiet breakfast at home because of the daily rush to get Ryan. I looked at her, and she had that same stubborn expression, thinking she could still play with me. She finished her breakfast and walked out behind me. The new driver was waiting, and he opened the door. I looked at her and said, "Didn't I tell you yesterday that you're not riding with me anymore?" I remember every word I said last night, and I am not that fool anymore. I was speechless and couldn't say a word if her father hadn't pressured her. She wouldn't have tried to fix things this way, thinking money was simple and that he could control people. But her father needed the job. I didn't waste more time and told the driver to take us to school. She got out of the car and walked behind me. We used to always arrive with Ryan, but today he was on the bus. As soon as he saw us, he looked at us and asked, "Did you guys call each other?" I didn't answer either of them and walked straight into school without stopping for anyone. There was no time for bets. Nothing was worth fighting over for her. I just shook my head, and he said, "How can you let a servant's son act like this? You've become too patient. People are talking and saying Jack is the real master." I told them to ignore it, saying her father has a good relationship with Jack and asked him to take care of me, that we can't let this talk continue, but Ryan needed to rest. I entered the classroom and found Bree standing in my place. I told her to move, and she looked at me, shocked, saying, "You're so bold today. Yesterday, you left us at the gate and let the driver leave with the car." I just laughed quietly and said, "I am free, who are you anyway?" My confidence surprised everyone. She said, "So you're saying this luxury car is yours?" I said it's mine. And more than that, she laughed and asked, "Who do you think you are, Jack?" "We all know who you are. Your father and your whole family work for the Gangle family. You're just making a problem, and it won't end well for you." Bree was a relative of Ryan, and one of those who always stuck around when she said that people actually believed her. Ryan and I entered the classroom, and Ryan looked annoyed because Bree's talk wasn't an attack on me alone.